and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alyson Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian orders the start of nuclear talks with the US. This comes after US President Donald Trump said that he was hopeful of a deal to avert military action against the Islamic Republic. Germany arrests 5 people for exporting goods worth at least $35 million to Russia, including exports made to over 20 arms companies in violation of the EU sanctions. The Democratic Republic of Congo government says explosive drones carrying munitions targeted a strategic airport in the city of Kisangani over the weekend. Authorities say that 8 enemy drones were neutralized before reaching their target. A Chinese court sentences former Justice Minister Tang Yijun to life in prison for taking bribes. The court says that Tang had illegally accepted property worth nearly $20 million between 2006 and 2022. And fans welcome South Korea's first Grammy win for the song Golden from the hit animated film K-pop Demon Hunters, describing it as a breakthrough for the genre. Hello and welcome. Our top story is from Uganda. The country's army chief has irked the Trump administration. Last week, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba broke ties with the US in a post on X. He accused the US embassy in Kampala of hiding opposition leader Bobi Wine. Then, just an hour later, Kainerugaba deleted the post and issued an apology to the US. President Museveni's son said that he was being fed incorrect information and called Washington a great friend. But a US senator has rejected his apology and even suggested sanctions on Uganda. His name is Jim Risch. Now, he is the Republican chairman of the US Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Reacting to Kainerugaba's posts, this is what he posted on X.
Commander Muhoozi Kainerugaba has crossed a red line, and now the U.S. must reevaluate its security partnership, which includes sanctions and military cooperation with Uganda. The president's son, and likely successor, cannot just delete tweets and issue hollow apologies. The U.S. will not tolerate this level of instability and recklessness when American personnel, U.S. interests, and innocent lives in the region are at stake.
Now, this is not the first time the US senator has suggested slapping sanctions on Museveni's son. Last month, Risch issued a statement on the Ugandan election. He compared the polls to the ones that were held in Tanzania, which were marred by post-poll violence.
Uganda's elections, like the recent elections in Tanzania, were a hollow exercise staged to legitimize President Yoweri Museveni's 7th term and 4 decades in power. But even more so than Tanzania, Uganda is a key regional security partner to the United States. Yet, its ruling regime prioritizes domestic control through political violence, abductions, imprisonment, intimidation of opponents, and the misuse of state resources to maintain its grip on power.
Risch also accused Uganda of being an exporter of instability in the region. He called on the Trump administration to reassess its security relationship with the African country.
I applaud how the Trump administration is pursuing commercial and security gains in the region, but I'm concerned this will be increasingly difficult to do given the current trajectory. As with Tanzania, the administration should reassess the U.S. security relationship with Uganda, beginning with a review of whether sanctions are warranted under existing authorities against specific actors, including General Muhoozi Kainerugaba.
Ugandan Army Chief Kainerugaba is famous for his provocative online posts. X seems like his battleground, where he launches verbal attacks on his adversaries and retracts some of them. Bobi Wine is Kainerugaba's arch foe. Wine stood against his father, President Museveni, in the latest polls, after Museveni was declared the winner Wine escaped an alleged military raid at his home and fled into hiding. Since then, the Ugandan army chief has been launching relentless attacks against Wine. He said that his men will capture Wine either alive or dead. Now, in one of his posts, Kainerugaba called the members of Wine's party terrorists and said that he had killed 22 of them and Wine would be next. Now, later, he deleted that post. Museveni's son had also given a 48-hour ultimatum to Wine. He warned that if Wine failed to adhere to it, then he would be treated as an outlaw or rebel. Recently, Kainerugaba's men conducted another raid at Wine's home and allegedly assaulted and threatened his wife, Bobi. Now, even though Wine is in hiding, he has been hitting back at the army chief. In each and every post, Wine has been teasing Kainerugaba by saying, "Catch me if you can." Now, he is in Uganda, but his exact whereabouts remain unknown. Meanwhile, Kainerugaba is growing impatient, and driven by his impatience and animosity toward Wine, he launched a direct verbal attack on the US. And despite Kainerugaba's apology, Washington does not seem ready to let his provocative actions slide. What will be the next step of the Trump administration? Now that remains to be seen. And moving on to the Sahel, the Islamic State has released a video showing its attack on an Air Force base in Niger's capital, Niamey. The footage was released by the Islamic State's propaganda wing. The terrorist group called it a surprise and coordinated attack. Allahu Akbar! You can hear the chants of Allahu Akbar in the background, and the video purportedly shows an explosion inside a hangar housing a helicopter, as well as another aircraft which was on fire. Now, the attack took place last week at the Diari Hamani International Airport. In the wake of the attack, the US State Department ordered its non-emergency staff and their family members to leave Niger. The attack killed 4 soldiers and damaged 3 aircraft. The junta said that 20 attackers were killed and one of them was a Frenchman. The junta Chief General Abdurrahmani Tiani has accused Benin, France and the Ivory Coast of sponsoring the terrorists. Now, he also thanked Russian partners for helping to repel the attack. Until 2023, Niger was a key security ally of the West. Now, since the junta came to power, the equation changed, and Niger has moved closer to Russia and has turned away from France and Benin. Niger has been fighting terrorists linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State for a decade now. The violence is mostly contained in the country's west and southeast. But it was unusual for attacks to occur in the capital, and the latest target was a significant one. Now, the Niamey airport houses the 101st Air Force Base. It is also the headquarters of a joint force created by Niger, Burkina Faso and Mali to combat terrorists. French forces had been deployed at the base to help to fight terrorists, but they were asked to leave in late 2023. Moreover, a large uranium shipment has been stored at the airport for several weeks now. It is the source of dispute between Niger and the French nuclear giant Orano. Now, despite Russian support, Niger has failed to contain terrorist violence. Looking at the broader Sahel region, Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State-linked terrorists escalated their campaigns in 2025, further threatening the stability of the region. Now, the latest Islamic State attack has yet again highlighted just how fragile the security situation remains in the Sahel. It has also raised questions over the ability of the Alliance of Sahel states to protect the region amid such threats. And on to our next story, which is a diplomatic tit-for-tat. South Africa, which dragged Israel to the International Court of Justice, has now expelled its top envoy. sparking fresh calls to close the Israeli embassy in Pretoria. And it's a step that further deepens the already volatile showdown. Now, the loudest call came from Julius Malema, leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters, which is one of South Africa's major opposition parties. Malema said that South Africa should go a step further after expelling Israel's charge d'affaires, Ariel Seidman. He described the move as part of a broader stand against what he called bullying and imperialism by global powers, including the United States and Israel. He accused the US President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of pursuing policies that, according to him, have led to severe suffering in Palestine and beyond. Malema argued that shutting down the Israeli embassy was necessary to assert South Africa's sovereignty and to resist external pressure. Now, this comes after South Africa declared Ariel Seidman as persona non grata on Friday. Now, a move that forces an envoy to leave the host country. Now, the Foreign Ministry accused the Israeli diplomat of violating norms, including publicly attacking President Cyril Ramaphosa and failing to follow protocol on official engagements. Now, Israel responded swiftly, expelling a senior South African diplomat, Sean Edwin Beidenveld, and giving him 72 hours to leave. Now, Israeli officials said that further steps could follow, marking a clear escalation in diplomatic retaliation. South Africa criticized Israel's response, saying that it highlighted Israel's refusal to respect international norms, particularly on Palestinian statehood. Officials noted that South Africa's representative to Palestine operates under restrictive conditions due to Israeli control of occupied territories. The diplomatic tit-for-tat comes amid worsening relations over Israel's military campaign in Gaza. South Africa took Israel to the International Court of Justice in December of 2023, accusing it of committing genocide in Gaza.
We have followed the rules of international law. I believe the case is a victory for international law, and it is incumbent upon the globe to ensure that we live in a rules-based society, and that is what we've done. So there can't be any repercussions. If there could be any repercussions, should be against the state of Israel, who have been found by a court that they could be plausible actions of genocide.
While activists and international rights groups have raised concerns over civilian casualties and humanitarian conditions. Now, with diplomatic expulsions on both sides and growing political pressure at home, South Africa's confrontation with Israel reflects a broader clash over Gaza, international law, and the future of bilateral ties. In our next story, the irony could not be sharper. On one side of Nairobi, Fashion Week runways glittered with upcycled designs, urging the world to slow down, cut carbon, and make clothes that last longer. But just a few kilometers away, trucks unloaded mountains of second-hand clothing, fueling a growing textile waste crisis. On Saturday, Nairobi Fashion Week rallied designers around a decarbonized theme. The message was clear: fast fashion is costly, and the future lies in circular design, conscious production, and durability. Models walked the ramp in garments made from repurposed silks, denim, and discarded fabrics. Now, the designer John Kaveke closed his show with a collection made up of about 80% of upcycled materials, many sourced from second-hand markets like Gikomba. Now, his work stood as proof that waste can be reimagined into high fashion without losing appeal or quality.
I think it worked perfectly for me because 80% of the collection I showcased for today was all upcycled fabric. So I bought a lot of these fabrics that you saw in the collection, all from the second-hand market, local markets, the Gikomba. So I used those ones and created pieces that can still be, they look like fresh. So for me, it really worked with the theme and tied with the idea of being able to do this and create something that's amazing with a story behind it.
But while designers called for slower fashion, the reality on the ground told a different story. At Gicomba, one of East Africa's largest second-hand markets, bales of used clothes are opened daily. Traders sort through them, hoping to find sellable pieces. Many don't. Now, some garments arrive too damaged, too thin, or too poorly made to be worn again, ending up as waste within days. Now, second-hand clothing is cheaper than new garments and remain essential for millions of Kenyans. Traders insist that good quality clothes still exist and that the problem lies with low-grade imports, not the business itself. The numbers show the scale of the contradiction. Kenya imported about 206,000 tons of used clothing in the year ending March of 2024. The sector supports roughly 2 million jobs. Nearly half of the population bought second-hand clothing in 2023. For young designers, the waste is both a crisis and a resource. Some scavenge dump sites and markets for discarded textiles, turning thrown-away clothes into new creations, closing the loop that the industry has failed to. Regulators say that action is finally catching up. Authorities acknowledge that recycling capacity is weak and that many imports are substandard. After a legal hurdle, extended producer responsibility, and these rules are now back in force. Environmental groups say that the irony must end. They argue that Africa cannot preach sustainable fashion while absorbing the world's unwanted clothes. Africa is increasingly serving as a global dumping ground for used clothing from the global north. Critics claim that this system has emerged as an escape valve for massive overproduction, forcing African communities to deal with mountains of textile waste and environmental pollution that they did not create.
So we're not against this business because we do realize that there's a big population of traders who actually depend on this for their livelihood. And that's okay. I think what we are calling really and we are pushing really is for the global north to stop dumping and for the local government to ensure that there is stringent measures at the port of entry where we are saying if anything is of low quality, then we will not accept.
As Nairobi celebrates upcycling on the runway, the city continues to shoulder the cost of global overconsumption. Urgent reminder that sustainability is not just a style statement, but a systemic choice. And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching and good night.